Thanks very much, Tim, and look, thanks for the opportunity to talk to everyone today. So, as you say, Latin Resources is a diversified exploration company. We have assets here in Australia, over in South America, with a couple of projects in Peru and a hard rock lithium project in Argentina. And mostly I'll be talking to you about our Newmanbury project here in Western Australia, but we also have a number of gold assets over in New South Wales, in the Lachlan Fold Belt over there. But as I said, this talk will really be focused on our Newmanbury Halloysite project here in WA, where we've just released our maiden JORC resource on that. So if we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so Newmanbury is a soft rock Halloysite Kaolin deposit. We've just released, as I said, a JORC resource on that. We've called our initial deposit there the Cloud9 Deposit. And it's a compelling opportunity, as this is one of Australia's few naturally occurring halloysite projects. And you can see it's just located just to the east of Perth out there, about 300 kilometres, in fact, just to the south of the town of Merredin. We have the main Great Eastern Highway running through the project area. We've got rail running through the area, power and water, so in terms of infrastructure, we're very well placed. And of course, we've got the town of Kalgoorlie, just another 300 kilometres further east, which is obviously a major mining centre with all of the associated services with that. The project itself is situated in wheat fields. You can see the photo on the left-hand side there. So very easy access. We've got good relationships with all of our farmers out there. That is, in fact, our first drill hole that we drilled on the project towards the end of last year in that photo. So it's literally very easy to get in and around the project, and makes life very easy for our field teams out there. So next slide, please. Okay, so jumping straight into the resource itself, we announced just on Monday our initial maiden JORC resource out there, and you can see that's coming at 207 million tonnes, which is a fantastic result for us. It's comprised of two main zones. There's 123 million tonnes in a kaolin-bearing material there, and 84 million tonnes in a halloysite kaolin material. And they're very distinct and separate zones within that main 207 million tonne ore body. From that 207 million tonnes is the full ore body, so it contains the clay minerals that we've been looking for here, as well as some waste materials, quartz, etc. So we get about 42% of that reporting through to the minus 45 micron, which is our product specimen granular size fraction that we look for there. So it's about 73 million tonnes of bright white kaolin using a 75 ISO brightness cutoff, or 29 million tonnes using an 80 ISO brightness cutoff. And that's a really good product spec, and that gets us up to 82 brightness, which is certainly what we're looking for in terms of that type of material. When we look at the halloysite zone itself, that contains about 50 million tonnes at 6% halloysite, using the 1% cutoff, or 27 million tonnes at 8% halloysite. So again, this is a really good result for us. You need to remember that this is the very first resource we have on this, so it's a global resource, so our grades are very much smooth, and just looking at a broader resource. So as we get further into this deposit and we drill it out further, we'll be able to tease out some of the higher grade zones within that. So next slide, please. So you can see there on the right hand side, this is the drilling that we've done. We've completed about 197 holes for just over 4,000 metres of drilling, and that was done in the late last year at a 400 metre centre, and then we stopped for Christmas and went straight back in the new year this year to finish that off. And something that's quite important to note there is you can see that we've actually stopped drilling on farm boundaries. That's due to our access. We now have access out beyond that farm. Our ore body is not constrained by that drilling. It is open in all directions, and we'll be looking to extend that resource in the very near future. What's also very important to know here is that when you look at some of the results that we're getting out of the drilling that we've got there, you can see some very high grades, 26 metres at 24% halloysite, 8 metres at 35% halloysite, and down at the bottom there in NBA, 159, 4 metres at 44% halloysite. So these are really extremely high grades, and they're not really reflected in our resource at the moment because, as I said, it's a global resource. So those higher grade zones are certainly smoothed out, and we'll look to tease some of those out as we go forward. So next slide, please. Geology here is very simple. You can see there's in the cross section there's a granite basement that underlies the entire area there. We've got about 5 metres or less than that of soil cover, and then into that kaolinised granite, which is that yellow zone through there that we're looking at. The image on the right hand side there is very typical of what we see out there. You can see that sort of 5 to 6 metres of soil cover, then into those bright white clays, and that is composed, as I said, about 40% clay material and about 60% of these other relic material from the granite, mostly quartz, a few other bits and pieces in there. So again, that's very typical, and then we go into our granite basement through there. So the fact that we've got such shallow cover is a real positive for this project, and certainly bodes well for future development. Next slide, please. Okay, so what I've got here is just, I guess, a bit of trying to represent the 2 different zones. As I said, that we've got here the cross sections on the right hand side there. You can see the red zones there are halloysite, and the yellow zones are the more kaolin-rich zones. And again, they're sort of mutually exclusive from one another. They sort of sit in that same kaolinised granite zone, but we do see a distinct separation of the halloysite material, and that certainly looks to be sitting closer to the basement material. That's fairly consistent across what we're seeing in our drilling. So what actually is halloysite? It's a bit of an interesting commodity. So kaolin obviously is a weathering product from the granite and the feldspars within that. And the scanning electron microscope image on the right there, you can see those flat plates of kaolin. And on the right hand side there is the halloysite, and this is effectively it's the same mineral with a bit of water, less water in the crystal matrix, and they roll up into these tubes. What's really good about our Newberry project is the high aspect ratio, which is the length of those tubes to the diameter of them. This is certainly very favourable in some of the back-end uses for the halloysite. So that's really encouraging to see that again. Next slide, please. So just looking at, I guess, a bit more at the resource itself, the image on the right there is a distribution of the halloysite grade. And again, you can see that we're drilling all grade all the way up to the boundaries where we drill to this ore body is open to the north, to the south, and to the east and the west. And importantly, there is some of those sort of dark reddish blocks in the middle there. We know this is where we're getting in our drilling some of the plus 20% halloysite in those areas. And again, because this is an inferred resource at an early stage, we haven't been able to tease those zones out. So our next round of drilling will go back in and look to focus on those zones and pull them out, so we can report those out separately. The 2 sections on the left-hand side there, again, the top one is brightness, and the bottom one is grade of halloysite. And you can see again, there's a very distinct separation in between the 2 zones, with the purples and the reds in the top image there, showing the high brightness material, which is the favourable kaolin product. And in the bottom there, you can see that band of red down the bottom there, which is the higher grade halloysite. So quite distinctly different, and again, sitting on the base of the granite there, down there. Next slide, please. So what are these things actually used for? Again, we get this question a lot. What is the end product used? And certainly kaolin there should be well known to people. It's a pigment that's used in paper and ceramics, paints and plastics, etc. And what you're looking for there is high brightness. So the minimum product spec is around that 75 ISO brightness. And when you're getting up to where we are in around 80 and plus 82, right up to 84 brightness, these are really high quality products and certainly look well sought after in that kaolin market. For halloysite, this is I guess an emerging technology, and it's certainly got a lot of interest and a lot of usage in things like hydrogen storage, carbon capture, supercapacitors, and these type of things. Also nanotube technologies for delivery systems for pesticides and things like that. There's also a bit of research coming on at the moment in terms of the addition of halloysite into cements and concretes to increase the strength of those and things like that. So that halloysite market is certainly very emerging at the moment, whereas the kaolin is quite well understood, and there's a good base in that. And you can see there on the right-hand side that global kaolin market. It's around about $5.5 billion in 2013 and looking to get up to around about $8 billion by 2024. So significant growth through there, and you know, a very strong market indeed for those products. Next slide, thanks. Okay, so just looking, I guess, at the project in a bit sort of wider scale, you can see the in the right-hand side there, our drilling again and our resource contained within that one exploration license that we have. As I said, our drilling is constrained by a farm boundary there only. Our ore body continues on to the north and to the south, east and west. We've got an extensive tenement package there, you know, covering 560 odd square kilometres and 105 kilometres of strike from north to south. You can see it in that image on the left-hand side. Most of those tenements are still under application. We have 3 granted tenements now. That one down to the south has only just been granted very recently, which is great, which means we can start working on that area now as well. We have done some work up to the north east from the resource area, and you can see there's a couple of rock chips that we've taken up there. We've gone and sampled some of the local dams, and they're coming back with, again, very high brightness at greater than 84 ISOB and 25% halloysite. So we know there's more of this material along strike. It's just now a matter for us to start stepping out and expanding on what we've got so far. Next slide, thanks. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. You can see that area in the red hatching there. That's our next phase of drilling. That is around about the same size area-wise that our current resources in, and we'll be into that in about 2 weeks' time. We'll be heading back on site. The rig's already lined up. Our geos are ready to go, and they're heading out in literally a week's time to start pegging for that. That's a separate farm that we've got an access agreement with now. All of our farmers have been very accommodating, so that's certainly really encouraging for us and really help us getting on the ground out there. So we'll be getting onto that to extend our resource. We'll also be doing some infill drilling on the current resource and that's really to look at increasing our JORC classification to indicated and measured. And that, again, as I said, that'll help us bring out those high-grade zones that we know are within this ore body. And look to sort of selectively report those out of the block model. And all of this work is then got to feed into a PFS that we're sort of getting into now. So we're really looking to fast track this project. It's been 18 months since we picked it up and discovered that there was, or confirmed that there was a halloysite here through to our JORC resource. So that's really a testament to the field team here and the consultants that we're dragging in. Everyone's sort of pushing together to get this job done. Next slide. So in terms of news flow, over the next short while, as I said, we're commencing drilling in a couple of weeks' time, so we'll certainly let you know how that's going. The extensions off to the north there. We've got new tenements that are coming online, and hopefully they'll be very shortly being granted, and we'll start our regional work there again. We'll keep you all up to date as to what we're seeing as we go, because that's going to generate new targets for us. Obviously, the commencement of the infill drilling within that mineral resource estimate that we've done, and results from those, and then as we step into the PFS, we'll keep you fully informed as to where we're going with that. I think that's it. Last slide, I think. Next one. Just a bit of the metrics on the company. You can see there with a market cap of around about 89 at that 6 cents. We're well funded. We've got over $4 million in cash, no debt. So we can certainly get through all of these next phases of work that we're doing very easily. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting time over the next sort of couple of months for us as we get back into doing what we like to do best, which is drill holes. So I think that's about it, Tim.
Thanks, Tony. Lots of questions. Let's start with, given the agricultural use of the land near you, will there be problems getting drill access and later a development go ahead?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. And what we've found, as I said, is we've got a number of farmers that we're dealing with at the moment to get to where we are. All of our farmers have been really accommodating. We've got access agreements to get in and on the ground and do our drilling and exploration through there. all of these people understand where we're going with the project in terms of fast tracking it, and can see the value that they're in. So no, I don't expect any issues at all. Obviously, we need to negotiate mining agreements if and when we get to the point where we'll be developing this thing. But look, all of our farmers are very accommodating and go out of their way to help us and make our life easy. So it's good working relationships up to this point, absolutely.
And Tony, Kaolin has multiple uses. Where do you start in terms of your target market, and what's the kind of value of that?
Yeah, look, that's again a really good question. Obviously, as we haven't yet gone down the pathway of offtake agreements and things like that. It's a bit early stage for the project. But the base commodity here is, as you say, kaolin. It's a very well understood market. There's a big market for material out there, and certainly when the material that we have which is up around that 80 and plus in terms of the brightness, this is well sought after material. So those sorts of things certainly bode well for those sort of offtake agreements and those discussions in the future. The halloysite is another one again. This is a very high value commodity. We're talking hundreds of dollars for a kaolin product versus thousands of dollars for a halloysite product. So that's certainly a focus for us, is to understanding where this material is. It's very rare. There's only a few projects here in Australia and globally, in fact, that have this naturally occurring halloysite. So understanding the grades and the distribution of that, so we can then better look to market those products, is something that we'll need to get our heads around. And that will be sort of coming in the feasibility study. And as I said, where we look to infill drill around those high grade areas that we have. Because certainly what we're seeing is some of the grades that we're getting coming out of Newmanberry and Cloud9 are some of the highest that are being reported here in Australia. So it's certainly a major focus for us, understanding that main halloysite ore body.
And Tony, we had Andromeda on last week, so we've got lots of questions around peer comparisons.
Sure.
Where do you see Leighton Resources in comparison to where Andromeda are at?
Yeah, sure. Look, Andromeda certainly have a bit of a head start on us. They're certainly more advanced. They've got measured and indicated resources, but we are going very quickly and closing that gap, hopefully sooner rather than later. In terms of the global resource, these are very similar projects. Brightness is around about the same. The tonnage that we have here at 207 million tonnes was outstanding, and we know that's only going to grow. So, without wanting to, we have this, they have that. It's very difficult to sort of make those comparisons. But on a global sense, we, as I said, we're very much on par with the combined resources that Andromeda have. We know we've got some very, very high grade halloysite material within our ore body. Certainly some of the highest reported that I've seen in Australia from any project. So again, that bodes very well for us. And we'll be working to understand those higher grade zones more, so we can then report those out more selectively, as I've said.
And finally, just quickly, Tony, access to water, that's important.
Yeah, look, absolutely it is. As I said, the main capability pipeline's running through the northern part of the project there, but we, because we're launching into our pre-feasibility studies, one of those areas of work is going to be water, so hydrogeological studies and things like that. Obviously important to make sure we tick all those boxes as we go forward with that. The use of water for the project itself through the development, there are a number of projects around that are using dry processing as a starter. We haven't yet gone too far down the path of what we'll be doing on site, potentially when we develop this thing. So all of those things need to be sort of taken into consideration. But you're right, water is certainly something that we will need to look at very closely, and we will be doing that as part of any sort of future studies as we move forward.
Great, Tony. That's all we have time for. Have a great weekend.
No worries. Thanks very much, Tim.
Now, before anyone goes, we have the new webinar details for next week. Brain Chip, Imugene, Race Oncology, Ordera Headphones, which is a new company just listed. So if I was you, I would register now because we have limited spots available. Have a good weekend.